Hi, my name's Ian, and this is a short video about the gantry crane I built for my Mech 110 class. The crane was required to lift 50 pounds and translate it horizontally 12 inches and vertically 12 inches. The crane was constructed entirely out of Vex Robotics parts, and we were given a limit of 2 Vex Robotics motors. Here you can see an early sketch of our design. The basics of it consist of 2 parts. One, the frame, and 2, this little cart thing. It's on 4 wheels, and the idea behind it is that it will ride back and forth on a simple track system, and on board you have a winch. What you're looking at here is an early depiction of the winch gearing. So coming off the motor shaft, you have 2 12-tooth gears that go into 2 36-tooth gears. The reason for the redundant gearing is to effectively double the width of each tooth on the gear. This decreases a lot of stress on the teeth of the gears and reduces any type of skipping you would otherwise see. So, as far as the gear ratio goes, you got small to big, small to big, small to big. This works out to be a 75-to-1 gear reduction. What that means is that for every rotation of the motor, for every 75 rotations of the motor, the actual winch spins once. Now, we later found out that this is way too much gear reduction, and it works out to being capable of lifting around 200 pounds when I only need to lift 50. But worse than that, it interferes with the time limit because the winch turns 75 times slower than the motor. So later we made a revision, and that brings me on to this slide. So here's a revised sketch showing the final gear design. As you can see, I've removed one set of 12 to 60 tooth gears and replace them with 2 36 tooth gears, meaning that between the 2 sets of gear reduction, this is effectively 1-to-1, and that takes my gearing from 75-to-1 all the way back to 15-to-1, which turns out to be plenty of torque for this application, as you will see later on. And this is just an image of the final build of our winch gearing. So the winch does a good job of lifting the weight up. Now we need something to move it side to side. So here you can see our little cart, and it is 4-wheel drive, and on it we're running the same motor that we used to lift the winch, but this time we're only doing a 5-to-1 gear reduction, because it doesn't actually have to lift the 50 pounds, it just has to drive with 50 pounds of load. Now you can see my gears working nicely, and you'll notice that the top axle is spinning significantly slower than the winch itself because of that 15-to-1 gear reduction. And as you can tell, it is lifting the weight, as you see here. We're quite proud of the frame design, as in the class it turned out to be the lightest, but it's still plenty strong for lifting the weight. Now when I go to flip the second switch, the crane is going to translate the object horizontally, and it drives pretty good. If there was one thing I could do over next time, if I was doing this project again, I would try to beef up the actual drive mechanism, as it's hard to tell in the video, but there is some bending in those drive axles. So over time, the metal might fatigue. In conclusion, I thought this was a pretty fun little project, and I feel like my group did fairly well with what we were given, and I'm happy with our overall design.